Hello everyone, here we are with another interesting video. The topic of our discussion is extremophiles, or we can say it as the life in extreme environments. I'm Dr. Rahul Jain, Assistant Professor at IMS University Courses Campus, Biosciences Department. So, as the name indicates, extremophiles. If you will break the terms, you will get extreme and phile. Extreme means something related to the conditions which are extreme to human beings or to us. Philes means to love. So, there are certain organisms which have developed the capability to survive in extreme conditions. So, what those extreme conditions can be, that we will discuss later. But if I'll consider it as a from the human point of view, very low temperature, very high temperature, high pressure, these are certain conditions which are considered as extreme. So we are specifically talking about the microorganisms today. Being the extremophiles, they are the most known and most studied organism as the extremophilic microorganisms. So these microbes, which have the tendency, which have the capability to grow in these extreme conditions, they are known as extremophiles. So first of all, this term was coined by Messelroy in the year 1974. So the definition which was given was microorganisms that survive and grow under unusual extreme environmental conditions. So members from all the three domains of life, including bacteria, archaea, and eukarya, they comes under this category. But more, if we'll say which is a major group belongs to this category, then it is the archaea, which are the successful inhabitant of these extreme conditions. But apart from that, bacteria are also the second largest group which inhabit these extreme conditions. So this extremophiles, they are considered as model organism when exploring the existence of extraterrestrial life, or that study is known as the astrobiology, because previously when the earth was not formed, the conditions over here on the earth was very harsh. So now we have so much adaptations, we have so nice conditions to grow, but there are certain conditions or certain areas, certain habitats, they still exist, which are having extreme conditions in respect of temperature, pH, salt, pressure, or some other conditions including UV radiation, very high metal concentration, etc. So because the conditions on the other planet, even today the conditions at other planets are severely different, or it is very harsh on in comparison to the earth. So this studying these extremophiles, it is an interesting topic if we want to consider or the study the life at some other planet or the extraterrestrial life, and that makes the astrobiology. So based on the different conditions where these extremophiles can grow and survive and proliferate very nicely, they are temperature, pH, salt, pressure, UV radiation, etc. So based on these conditions, the extremophiles are divided into different categories. So first of all, if it is the temperature, it could be low temperature, and if the organism or the microbes which are growing in these low temperature conditions, then we call them psychrophiles. Thermophiles, which can grow at high temperature. Acidophiles and alkaliphiles, these are divided based on the pH of the habitat or the growing medium. Then it is the halophiles. It stands for, halo means the high salt, philes means to love. So which the organism which can grow very well nicely in these high salt concentration environment, they are called as halophiles. Next is the barophiles or piezophile. So these organisms, they have tendency to grow under high pressure. So such environment can be found in maybe like marine environments. If you go into deep marine habitats, you will see a very high pressure of water above their bodies, above their body, or on the cell. So that is why they are barophiles. So they can grow in very high pressure conditions. And next category is radio-resistant microorganisms. So these are the microbes which can survive in or which can tolerate, or which can nicely proliferate in high radiation conditions. Like UV radiation is there, gamma radiations are there. So in those high radiation conditions also, these microorganisms, they can grow very easily. So, and the last category, and that is known as the polyextremophiles. So it is not like that one organism, if it is growing in high temperature conditions, some such organisms they also have the tendency to grow in acidic conditions as well altogether. So likewise, if a organism, if it has the ability to grow in more than one kind of those extreme conditions, then the term is given known as polyextremophiles. So discussing one by one, first of all we will start with the high temperature condition, or we call them the thermophiles. If we'll go by the definition, the optimal growth for these organisms is approximately 55 degrees Celsius, but they can also tolerate temperature up to 75 to 80 degrees Celsius. So if we compare them with the mesophiles means which can grow at temperature less than 45 degree or 55 degrees Celsius. They grow well at room temperature, or some can grow at 37 degrees Celsius. So those are mesophiles. But if we compare the thermophiles in comparison to mesophiles, these thermophiles can grow at very high temperature, and that is up to 80 degree Celsius. Apart from these thermophiles, we have hyperthermophiles. Hyper, as the name indicates, they can grow more than 80 degrees Celsius. There are certain organisms which are able to grow up to 121 or 122 degrees Celsius as well. So the best example of these bacteria is Geobacillus stereothermophilus thermus aquaticus. Thermus aquaticus, I hope so many of persons must be knowing or must have heard this name, because the Taq polymerase enzyme, it was firstly known or the firstly isolated from this organism, and the enzyme has a tendency to work at high temperature up to 72 degrees. It works very well at 72 degrees Celsius, and it is stable up to 98 degrees Celsius. So these organisms, particularly because they can grow at these high temperature conditions, so these high temperature conditions are not available everywhere. So there should be certain habitats where these organisms thrive or grow very nicely. So one example is Yellowstone National Park. You can see picture over here. This is the Yellowstone National Park, and this is this water boiling in this national park is characterized by very high boiling water up to actually the water in these thermal vents, they actually boil. Apart from that, there are certain other habitats. They include hydrothermal vents. So these hydrothermal vents, they are found below the very down the marine environment, where the water actually reaches to the boiling point, but it doesn't actually boil because of the high pressure of the water. But because of the high temperature conditions, those are the very suitable habitats for these thermophilic organisms. An example which of this bacterium, the Archaea Methanopyrus candeleri. This Archaea strain 116, it is the highest recorded temperature growing organism. It can grow at temperature of 122 degree Celsius. So how these thermophiles they grow in these high temperature environment? So there are certain adaptations. These organisms adapt in these environment by or through their high molecular weight and branched fatty acids in their membrane. And these branched membranes, or the high molecular weight and branched fatty acid membranes, they maintain the semi-permeability of the membrane. So in these high temperature conditions also, the semi-permeability of the plasma membrane is very well maintained. And apart from these plasma membrane based structures or modifications, they also have certain proteins which are responsible for providing them heat resistance. Those are known as heat shock proteins. So, as I discussed about Thermus aquaticus, these are the cells of Thermus aquaticus from which the Taq polymerase has been isolated, and that is the most important enzyme which is used in polymerase chain reaction nowadays.